Right now, as you read this, your body is destroying itself. Not slowly, not metaphorically. At this exact moment, roughly 3.8 million cells inside you are dying every single second. Your red blood cells live for about 120 days. Your skin cells last 2 to 3 weeks. The lining of your stomach replaces itself every 5 days because the acid that digests your food would dissolve it otherwise. You are not a fixed thing. You are a process. And here is where it gets strange. Scientists used to believe that over the course of 7 years, every single atom in your body is replaced. New carbon, new oxygen, new hydrogen. The atoms that made up your liver in 2017 are not the atoms that make up your liver today. They've cycled out through breath, sweat, waste, and been replaced by atoms from food, water, and air that didn't belong to you yet. For a long time, this was treated as a fun fact, a cocktail party statistic, something to say at dinner to make people uncomfortable. But it was never the whole story, because some parts of you don't replace themselves. And those parts change everything we think we know about identity, memory, and what it actually means to be you. Let's start with bone. The 7-year replacement myth comes mostly from bone metabolism research, and it's partially true. Your skeleton is not static. It's alive. It's constantly being broken down and rebuilt by 2 types of cells: osteoclasts, which dissolve old bone tissue, and osteoblasts, which deposit new material in its place.
This process is called bone remodeling, and it runs continuously, every day for your entire life. By your late 20s, your skeleton has been almost entirely replaced from what you were born with. The calcium in your femur right now almost certainly entered your body through food you ate within the last decade. Your bones are, in a very real sense, newer than you feel. But here's what the cocktail party version leaves out. Replacement isn't uniform. Your rib cage turns over relatively quickly, your vertebrae more slowly, and some bones, particularly in the skull, hold on to their original material far longer than others. Forensic scientists can actually use this variation to estimate a person's age from skeletal remains, because the ratio of original to replaced bone changes in a predictable pattern across a lifetime. Your skeleton is not one thing with one age. It's a patchwork. Some of it is relatively new. Some of it has been with you since childhood. The structure you're sitting in right now is a layered archive, different parts from different eras of your life, held together in the shape of a person. Now, let's go deeper, past the bone, into the brain. This is where the story stops being comfortable. Most neurons, the cells that make up your brain, do not regenerate. Unlike your skin or your stomach lining, the neurons in your cerebral cortex, the part of your brain responsible for thought, language, perception, and personality, are largely the cells you were born with. Read that again. The neurons firing in your prefrontal cortex right now, the ones generating the experience of reading these words, have been alive since before you took your first breath.
Neuroscientist Jonas Frizén at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden spent years trying to determine the actual age of human cells. His team used a technique that took advantage of something no one had anticipated as a scientific tool: nuclear bomb testing. Between 1955 and 1963, above-ground nuclear weapons tests released enormous amounts of carbon-14 into the atmosphere. This radioactive isotope was absorbed by plants, then animals, then humans. It entered the food chain and became incorporated into cells all over the world. After the Test Ban Treaty, atmospheric carbon-14 levels began falling at a known rate. Frizén realized that by measuring the carbon-14 content of a cell, you could calculate the year it was born, because the concentration of carbon-14 in the atmosphere at the time the cell formed would be locked into its DNA. When his team applied this technique to neurons from the cerebral cortex, The results were unambiguous. Those neurons were as old as the person they came from, sometimes older, because neurons begin forming before birth. The cells thinking your thoughts right now were there before you had thoughts. They were there before you had language, before you had memory, before you had any concept of yourself as a self. But Fresn's research uncovered something even more unsettling. Not all brain cells are that old.
The olfactory bulb, the region that processes smell, shows significant cell turnover. New neurons arrive there throughout life. And the hippocampus, the brain structure essential for forming new memories, shows evidence of limited neurogenesis in humans, though how much and how significant it is remains one of the most actively debated questions in neuroscience. What this means is that your brain is not a single structure with a single age. Your memory system may be partially renewed. Your emotional processing centers are relatively stable. Your cortical neurons are ancient. You are, neurologically, a museum. Some exhibits are original. Some have been quietly replaced. And no one handed you a map when you walked in. Now, here is the part that moves from biology into something harder to name. In 2004, researchers studying women who had been pregnant discovered something that should not have been possible. They found cells in the brains of mothers that contained male DNA. Not contamination, not error. Male fetal cells living inside the maternal brain decades after pregnancy had ended. This phenomenon is called fetal microchimerism. During pregnancy, cells migrate across the placenta in both directions. Some of the fetus's cells enter the mother's bloodstream. Most are cleared by the immune system. But some survive. They integrate into maternal tissue. They take up residence in the lungs, the liver, the heart, and sometimes the brain. And they stay there. Studies have found fetal cells in mothers over 27 years after delivery. There are documented cases of fetal cells. This means that if your mother is still alive, there is a measurable probability that cells carrying your DNA are living inside her brain right now. She is not entirely herself. She is partly you. And if you have carried a pregnancy, regardless of outcome, the same may be true of you. Cells from that pregnancy may have integrated into your tissue. They may be there still, contributing to immune responses, possibly influencing neural function in ways researchers are only beginning to map. The boundary between one human being and another is not where anatomy suggested. There is one more layer, and it is the strangest. When Fresn's team looked at the lens cells of the human eye, the transparent cells at the center of the crystalline lens that allow you to focus, they found that those cells showed essentially no turnover at all. The cells at the core of your eye lens are as old as you are. They formed during fetal development and have remained unchanged ever since. Which means that the cells you are literally seeing through right now have been there since before you were born. You have been looking through the same biological material your entire life. Every face you have ever recognized, every sky you have ever seen, every word you have ever read, filtered through cells that have been with you longer than any memory you can access. So let's put this together. Your stomach lining replaced itself while you were reading this script. Your red blood cells from last year are gone. Your bones are a mosaic of eras, some recent, some from your childhood, assembled into a shape that feels continuous.
Your cortical neurons are original. They have been firing since before you had language, before you had a self, before you could remember anything. They carry no record you can access of what they experienced in those early years, but they were there. Your eye lens has never been replaced. It is, in a biological sense, the oldest part of the you that you currently occupy. And somewhere in the tissues of anyone who has been pregnant or been a child, there may be cells from another person entirely, quietly present, integrated, not quite foreign, not quite self. The version of you that exists right now is not a fixed object that has persisted through time. It is an ongoing negotiation. A population of cells with different ages, different origins, different replacement schedules, all operating in coordination so seamless that you experience it as a single continuous person. But the continuity is a story your brain tells. The biology is far more fragmented. Philosophers have argued for centuries about the ship of Theseus. If you replace every plank of a ship, one by one, is it still the same ship? The thought experiment was always meant to be abstract, a puzzle about identity with no real answer. But your body solved it, or rather refused to solve it, because it didn't replace everything, and it didn't keep everything. It made different decisions about different parts on different timescales for different reasons. Some of you is ancient. Some of you is new. Some of you may not be entirely you at all.
And the part of you doing the asking, the neurons generating the question of what you are, those are among the oldest cells in your entire body. They were forming before you had a name, before anyone knew who you would become. They have been with you through everything. And the most honest thing science can say right now is that we still don't fully understand what they are, where the self they generate begins, or where it ends. You are not what you think you are. You never were.